Okay. Let's close that down. Good morning, Topspike. How you doing? Get started already. Yeah, my apologies. I let the ads play, but my dogs escaped, and they like to try and run upstairs. So I was in a wrangling mode. How you doing, Topspike? Okay. Okay. So, day 2 of drink water this week. Yesterday we did a little bit of a tidy up. That needs to be reverted. We're all about that. That is changed. That is changed. Yeah, we added a try catch. And I probably refactored the entire solution. Awesome. I must have saved on the solution or something. Let's check. Okay. Oh yeah, we have a few updates to do. Some Blazor updates, some EF core updates. It is 7:10 a.m. Yeah. Yeah, this time window works for I start work at 9:30. So this is the best time window I have, because in the evenings I don't have early available to me, and late we don't need to see me falling asleep after doing a full day of work and then a karate class every night. So this works the best. Okay, I am going to I'm going to leave them alone for right this second, make that separate commit. We're going to do, this is going to be, am I going to do this right to dev? No, I'm not going to do this right to dev. We're going to do issues, new issue. Well, actually, we say we do this a little bit better, right? So when token is expired, presented with login screen, error shows the client So there's two things going wrong here. The first one is that the token has expired. The client has no idea. The second is that the server, we're actually making a request to the server we're actually making a request from within the consumption components. So we have this state provider, and this state provider wraps everything, and it's making this call, right? It's going to here, it's going to user service get consumption percentage. It's making this call while the user is not authenticated. So I wonder if we can kind of have a, well, no, we know if it's not. We kind of need to validate that the token hasn't expired, and then we can actually validate this, and here we can just validate that the user is authenticated. Yeah. So let's go back here. We have no idea from the client if the token has expired. As we discussed yesterday, it's not actually abnormal to pass down an expiration with the tokens. The response from auth0 when you log in is an ID token, an auth token, and an expiration. So they give you the ability to understand that on the client without decoding the token yourself on the client. And we can't do that because we have the server side signing key. No, we can do it. Just that's a validation. That's not an actual encryption of any form. So yeah, we could, but it's easy to store the actual expiration. We have no idea from the client if the token has expired. On startup of the application, making calls that require auth. Exception. The expiration. So the state provider doesn't. So if we have the authentication state provider here, right, we call if. So there is no external. It's in the authentication state provider. We return an authentication state. I suppose so. We could do var. We can do that. So Seems like something we don't want to continually provide. Is authenticated. So when we log in and when we validate is authenticated. But this seems like we can kind of shortcut this a little bit. By saying var state equals await if. So we always return. So no matter what, we always return an actual authentication state. So this is always valid, and it'll have a claims principal, and it'll either have a claims principal with no identity or an identity. So so what is state combining? If state dot, so we know that one user identity no, actually if that's a tough one, because what I was thinking there is if we go and morning on mobile came out to buy Nerf gun, failed. Oh no. Well, good morning, Rambling. Hope you are well. So the problem here is if the token's there, then this is going to be authenticated. This state is going to be authenticated right now, unless I do the expiration in here. Right. In which case, I can get rid of that. I can get rid of all of this. I don't need the validate endpoint anymore. Is authenticated can change, because this is just a validation of the actual token. I'm using this to do what I need to do in the local client. So if I store the validation, I can just say, okay, it's expired. So it's either not there, and then I'd inject the auth service. The auth service would get injected into the user service. But we could get, so the goal here would be to get rid of the token stuff. As much as possible, so we don't keep repeating that thing. Okay. So if we do the validation of the expiration in the token in there, or rather the validation of the expiration we've stored, so a lot of this stuff already is actually handled by when I'm doing this in the Angular in the regular app, a lot of this stuff is handled by the Auth0 client, right? So I'm not doing this stuff on a daily basis. So this feels very much like I'm just making it up as I go along, and my bet is that I'll land on something that looks close to how other things work, or I'll come so far off it that I'll notice enhancement, Blazor WA, water, drink water, refactor, it's a shame we can't put the token into the response somewhere. Yeah, you can just return the claims principal. Yeah, it takes a user. So, refactor services validate authentication before making request for token. I think that'll do for now. I realized I changed my logo, my image everywhere to the version. I changed it on I was making a WordPress site, and I changed the image from my old one and realized that I updated everything with it. Okay, so this is going to go into in progress, and I'm going to number 37. So I'm going to branch at this point so that I don't make a mess. Feature 37, token expiration on client. Okay. So although this change isn't necessarily a terrible one, because again it's HTTP requests, so actually handling those requests out is probably not the worst thing in the world. This endpoint actually won't be valid afterwards, or won't be necessary afterwards, because we'll be validating the token on the client. We don't need to ever just ask the server, because again, all I'm doing there is relying upon the fact that the token carries with it the expiration and the server does validate, right? And I don't know if you remember, but we actually had to put in, where are you? When we set up the token, was it all in here? There's somewhere where we do the validation API program. Okay, so we actually do have this validator here, which I think can be, I think if I think this can be simplified. There's a simplification of this that's yeah, there's one of them offered me a refactoring of that. I mean, I know what to do, but it won't necessarily make it more readable, so I'll move that anyway. But anyway, the lifetime validator isn't there by default, so by default this doesn't use the doesn't use that. Why do you not use Visual Studio? I was a long-time Visual Studio user. Before they released Community, I was on a professional subscription. I started picking up Rider a few years ago. It's a lot faster, or it feels a lot faster. Visual Studio has definitely improved. It's got a lot better over the last couple of years. But I became a Rider user a couple of years ago, and I kind of haven't looked back. There are certain things that the Visual Studio is much better for. Blazor being one of them. The Blazor tooling in Rider is definitely not as good. So Visual Studio, we were actually using Visual Studio yesterday because the debugging wasn't working properly. But I just like the layout and the IDE in general. And hi Falclips, how you doing? Visual Studio subscription comes with MSDN. So Visual Studio subscription on a recurring thing was costing me over $800 a year. You don't need that anymore for Visual Studio because you can obviously use Community if you're just building software. You don't obviously get MSDN. Rider is now, because I've been using the tool set for the last couple of years, I'm paying about $170 a year for all the JetBrains tools, minus AI Assistant, because why they don't give us that, I don't know. So, yeah, I enjoy the tooling. I use it a lot. It's Rider's a cleaner IDE overall. And Visual Studio comes with years of bloat, unfortunately for them. They've got to navigate a tight line there when they're adding new features. Okay, so we do validate the token on the client on the server, but we don't need to. Well, we do need to. We should always validate the lifetime, but I just wanted to highlight that isn't actually default behavior. It won't actually validate the lifetime of a token by default when you're receiving that. So again, that kind of tells me that there's probably something that suggests that the client should be responsible for doing that. So now what we need to do is we need to change the API endpoint for login, right? Because right now this returns a response, and that response has a token. So I've already set up the structure for this, right? The login request here returns a string. So this is just returning the token, right? So we have the token service where we generate a token, and then we do www pipe account ID, right? So www1, 2, whatever, right now. And this just builds a token out. It adds the username and the identifier in there, and then builds the actual token and sets an expiration of an hour, right? We need this to be a little bit more flexible. So we're going to create so we've got a JOT service there. We generate the token, and we're going to have, let's create account service, hash password. So delegate. I'm actually going to go with something a little simpler here, right? I'm going to go with what would that be? And it's ticks, right? That it uses. No. Yeah, it is ticks. Okay. So long. So the standard is to store them as, so if I bring up, do I have it up? Yeah. So we're storing the value, right? So the expiration comes that way. Because internally this was going to, right? It's going to get the payload, and it's going to That's interesting. Just double checking they don't do anything different to that in here. Expires that value. Wow. Nothing go wrong with there. So we're going to return token is that expiration is expiration dot fix. There's no point returning the date time. We do it that way. So the reason I'm creating a tuple is because creating an object for this doesn't really seem to make much sense right now. We can always come back and refactor that later, right? I want to move forward to getting this actually passed down and focus on that piece, right? So this now returns this. So the success, I think, is going to return the same thing for right now. Token, date, time, expiration, right? And we can do results, right? And the IntelliSense is helping us. The hinting. I don't often use tuples because, again, this seems like it could be a record or a class or whatever. We can always, once we've got this working, we can come back over and review that and do that. But there's no harm in passing the tuple around for right this second. I don't think there are any tests around that piece, but it's worth validating. Application tests. Because that's authentication. There's no... Does user exist? There's only two paths there. And this is going to be... So this is interesting. And then we're going to return... What happens if we do date time? We have to, again, so right now we've got a date time, and that is going to be, it is UTC now, but it's going to be, so the standard is to pass the ticks around, right? Because ticks are daytime January 1st. Is it? It says January 1st, 180. So it is. It should be all relative. So it's independent of the time zone. So here we need expiration equals result dot value dot expiration dot ticks. Again, let's review it later and validate. So now we have that piece. when we authenticate now, right, login response here is now public long expiration. Why is that nullable string? Because my login response might not actually contain it, so that's why. So that is, it's not actually this one that's the problem. So I could return, I don't have to return anything. I don't have to force them into nullable because I'm always returning an object of that type in the success case. The side that matters is this side. This login response has to have them as nullable because it's going to try and deserialize something. But I should get away from that there, so I don't need that either. Move to another file. Move to outer scope. Move to another file. It's a folder. Just trying to make that a little bit more clear. It was nested under user service because it was an old response. And I moved auth around, but that means that the auth service had a reference to user service. That. Times on model. Again, I'm being the response is that. The model is that. Again, so a little bit room for clarity there. Okay, so if we have a login response, right, we need to get the token. Local storage service dot set item async expires. So don't see any harm in doing it that way. So we store the expiration at the same time. And then in here, actually, we kind of need to, then we know there's no right. So now this becomes a validation of the expires. Because if there's no token, we're out. there's no way we've got a login, right? If there is token, but we have expires, oh, that's going to be long. And then basically this is if expires is greater than datetime.utc now.pix. Then we've got a valid user. If not, we've got no user. When I save that, it'll infer the long, so it'll know that it's long in there. Ooh, no. Okay, so now we have the expiration built into the state provider. That cleans that up a little bit. This still bugs me. We got strings everywhere. Now, though, in here, so is authenticated. This is going to change now to be wait. Well, state equals that. That. So now I don't need to validate because this will do the validation for us, is the goal. So the purpose right, because that can mean that part is nullable. Okay, so if the user has no identity, then it's false. That's fine. So for anyone new joining the stream, by the way, if you are interested in what I'm doing, if you're curious about what I'm doing, or you have thoughts, opinions, or questions about what I'm doing, you're more than welcome to ask. You're more than welcome to interact. This stream is not one of me sitting getting something done. This is a community project that is aimed at being friendly to anybody who wants to join in. Obviously it is .NET. Obviously it is, I'm working with something that's a little bit more complicated right now, but the purpose of me doing this is so that I'm doing this complicated piece so there are more friendlier options available, right? So the idea of this project is one of sharing. You're more than welcome to contribute. You're more than welcome to ask questions or do whatever you want to do with the project. You can download it and tinker with it. It's all available on the GitHub site, which is there, and I'll share that there just in case anyone on YouTube wants to watch. So, you know, it is not a project where I need to complete things. I need to get things working or done. It is a project solely aimed at discussion, and I only work on it on stream. So you're more than welcome to join in with any questions, thoughts, or opinions you have on what I'm doing. If you've done this sort of stuff before and you think that I'm doing this wrong, it's perfect to educate me as well, right? I don't normally do this sort of stuff, so this is a first time. So what I'm trying to figure out right a second is how to clean all this up, right? Because we've got a lot of this repetition, right? Where we go and get a token, we validate it, and then we go and get the bearer token. Well, now it's essentially we have the state provider where we've authenticated. So we could call essentially that all the time. We could call it is authenticated on our auth service. So let's have a look. let's see if we get rid of all that and all that, we still need a token, right? So can we move this part into here, right? Let's see, local storage service, right? And then we could potentially get the token off that, and that still saves us from having multiple repetitions of that. So let's see if we can clean that up a little bit. So we get rid of that. We get rid of that. We inject the auth. So there's two problems with that one. I want to check if I'm authenticated. Let's see if we let's test this a little bit. Let's do taskbar try get auth token out string token. So essentially we're doing that, right? But we're saying bar is authenticated equals that. And then we're setting token equals, I could do it that way. So then we don't need this one to have that. But then, again, if we're wrapping that up, right, then we don't need local storage here. Suppose it depends on responsibilities here, right? Who owns what piece? Right. Again, when I'm logging in, so if I put the responsibility of storage in here, so if we say public async task login string token long expiration, right? So if we put them on the state provider, right, and go back here, challenge is I've got a generic state provider passed in, so that's going to be really annoying. But here we could do dot login and then those two, and then the storage is now we'll come back on that in a second. The storage is now handled by this, right? So that's token and expiration. Interesting that it wants to flag that as data, but yeah, anyway. Similarly, if we have public async task log out, then again, what I'm trying to do here is avoid having any local storage concerns in this service. Then I can inject the auth service and I can do everything I need in the auth service, and then the Notify user has changed. Right. Because then that auth service, again, I don't know if this is the right thing to do, right? So no, wait. So this one would then become oh, I didn't make it. Public. And then token. So async method can have out parameters. But I haven't seen that signature. That'd be nice though. But I don't want to expose token up again from here, right? I don't want to say, okay, well now here's a token again. That's this signature would make sense, but I get it. So what's the right way to do that? Yeah. Good old. I mean, essentially it's that, right? And then that is nullable. That's so here. What we'd do is we'd inject the auth service, and then we would do if try get auth token is string token. No, it doesn't like that, does it? That'd be nice though if I could do it that way. Why don't you like that? That's not valid. Ugh. Oh, that's it prefers that. Okay. I mean, it cleans it up. I don't know how much though. If that's more readable or less readable. But it does mean we can basically repeat that pattern now. And that makes all that a little bit more. All right. Seems to be a lot of return zeros there. That should be. Yeah, a bit more defensive. Why is it like that? No, I don't want that. Right. So Hey, Kenny, how you doing? Yeah, so it wants that, which is a bit cleaner, I'll admit. You're not going to get there. Still don't like doing that. Better patterns with HTTP. See, I'm a big fan of not putting the try catches around, but in reality, that's a really poor thing to do because this service might not be there. I don't want the client to play up every time. So return false. Yeah, I mean it does clean up that service a bit. It drops the need for local storage. We don't have now multiple references, multiple strings all over the place. So it doesn't hurt. And the intent's there. If I can't get the auth token because it's invalid, so our authentication state provider wraps up login, log out. So this is doing everything that's doing with the state in the local storage service, right? So nothing local storage service should be outside of it. Still not very single responsibility. There's still lots of moving parts here, but we can move towards something good. Let's repeat that effort in here. So it's basically same pattern. I'm just gonna. So we're gonna try and get the token. If we can't get the token, we're going to bail, right? And possible null reference exception. No, that's not going to do that on that. I need to wrap it, but that's fine. We'll worry about the null reference afterwards. So now we don't have to repeat that part, which is good. We've got our friend service. Sorry, currently finding the best way to protect couple of services with no IDC workflow without implementing OIDC in all the services. So it depends. Technically fine. Practically, I want to make my own project, but work. And you? Not bad, not bad. I'm tinkering with this, thinking I'm making some mistakes, but we'll get there. I mean, technically, I'm the only one notifying it now, so that's good. Mr. Anhorn, good morning. How are you doing? And Patrick, hello. How are you doing? Ads are about to play in a few minutes. I do apologize. Let's see if this changed anything. So, what would this change? So what this will change now is that when we try to get the consumption percentage, because our token is invalid, and again we're validating the token inside of our state provider now, right? So we're not just validating that the token's there, we're validating the expiration of it as well. So it should not error no matter what, right? I should be able to log in still, but let's see. Terminal, watch. Playing with Azure ML Studio. Pretty neat stuff. Nice. Nice. I don't appear to have an error on the page straight away. When you're done with this project and need another, or simply find yourself looking for something else to work on, you should make your own image decoder. Oh, where's that coming from? Okay, so we do have now that. That's worrying. I've been tooling around with a PNG decoder for grey hack, and it's a doozy, but I'm learning a lot. Oh, nice. That's still insane that you're building that in a game. that blows my mind. Cannot live with that. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of not always, like people like don't reinvent the wheel, right? I'm a big fan. This is not working. What isn't working? Something's gone wrong with the request there, for certain. I'm a big fan of reinventing the wheel from time to time just to understand how the wheel works. So it's not about trying to make it better or whatever. It's trying to understand the actual intricacies of what you're doing, and sometimes that helps move you forward in a lot of ways. Compression algorithms are fascinating, even if they make my brain hurt. Yeah, I need a reserve brain power for that. Okay, so I just logged out before. Okay, so why is that not working? So when we go to preferences, I think we're getting this bad request. Let's have a look. Or we're just not getting anything because everything's defaulting because now the try get token stuff is not working. So is this an artifact of no, because it should return. So good news, all those things are just changed in the user service, etc., to get rid of the token, etc. So to validate the token. Yeah, that was all rubbish because that logic was wrong. I want equals null, right? So if token for whatever reason is nor empty. So I'm back to that anyway. I wasn't thinking about that when I was pattern matching it. I was actually saying if it's not null, then fail out. So everything was bad. So I was never making the server call. So that pattern is not. I had the right idea, just the wrong implementation. Mr. Jones, good afternoon. How are you doing? Try that again. Trying to be too clever there. The pattern matching seems to make. I kind of like that. If it's this, also here's your variable style. Come on. Yeah, it's going to work well. Okay. There we go. Okay, so now that looks healthier. That looks much healthier. So if we go to log and we do 25, and we do 25 again, yep, that's working. So now let's log out, close down, open back up. We get no error. Let's make sure the token expires now. Token service. Add minutes. Let's run that up again. And we'll do test at nowhere. So log in. That's interesting. Then introduce another bug. So just wait for a minute for this to expire, and what we should see is... Actually, I don't know what we'll see. We'll probably start seeing all the defaults again. Or will it know that I'm logged out? Probably should check that I'm actually storing. There you are, expires. There we go. So it has expired. It knows it's expired, but we haven't logged out. So, what do we do there? Because this is our validation. We're returning null. Essentially, we want to do something like that. But that calls that. That would send an infinite loop. So I can't do that. Because I am in here doing that. And that notify is the only thing that tells the state provider, because that notify state has changed. So anything I do there would send me into an infinite loop, wouldn't it? So it's kind of like I need to, in here, Well, no, it wouldn't. It wouldn't submit. So if I do, if not authenticated, because again, this provider. So if we make that public again, I'm going to call that when I ask for the token, right? So if I do that, do that dots, right? So the first time I come in there to get it is going to be the first time it's actually invalid. Oh, unable to apply because of a rude edit. Awesome. Always. That should log me out. But again, my concern is sending myself into some sort of crazy loop, right? That would be the worst potential, the worst cause. So it knows I'm not logged in. We log in. Although it doesn't log any errors whatsoever here, so I've got to figure out how to turn on verbose logging if I'm doing it that way. I still think that's a risky thing, so I'm going to try and get the auth token. If I don't get if I'm not authenticated at that point, then I'm going to trigger the notify users change. The idea being that will update the UI and tell me to and move me to the login page, right? Because I'm not signaling to the login to the rest of the app that way. So if I don't do that, I'm just going to keep getting default data back, which is bad. I need to log out, right? Although shouldn't navigation kind of validate that I'm logged in and automatically move me to a login page? So the idea being that I'm not authorized anymore. So it doesn't call that. It doesn't call this on every page load, right? So I'm definitely open to ideas here if anyone has any thoughts on. So this one, when I log in and I set them, that's okay, right? So login page, authenticate. So when I call authenticate, I call login, which triggers the notify and changes the state of the state provider, right? That's okay. When I call logout, I do the same thing. Was that the right thing to do? Because I'm trying to get the auth token, and if I can't get the auth token, then I need to doesn't seem right for the actual the calls that invoke these to do it. Otherwise, I've just called get authentication state. So, I mean, what would I do here? I don't even. The problem is I don't know what to look up because I don't know if I'm off on the life cycle or I'm off on the behavior. So like if I could refresh the state and know that it's valid and do something. Maybe that changes. How to Gemini. Blazor. This is going to be so generic, it's not even going to work. This gives me anything, I'd be impressed. What I'm looking for is to see if there's anything weird, right? Logout handler, update the authentication state property within your custom set is authenticated to false and use it to null, then call the notify authentication state change method to broadcast the change. We don't have his authenticated, do we? Is authenticated a concept or is that the state provider? According to that is authenticated, but that is not the way. More service. Yeah, there's no way that has. Yeah, there's no authenticated on there. That's not a default. Cascading authentication state. Is that a different thing? Yeah, that's not a. That is not what I think it is. I think that's making stuff up. Feels like I'm so close. Like I'm close to having this work, but in the same I'm not. But that should happen. That should. So if authentication state came back invalid, right? So we don't. Stop and build. Yeah. Pages, home. Right. But that shouldn't matter. That's just a redirect. I suppose it's not. So that one is actually useful because it does redirect to log when we go to the home page. If we are, so we don't see the home page if we're not logged in. We don't see the home page if we are logged in. Sorry. Oh. So it doesn't seem worthwhile putting some sort of is valid check in here so that we can avoid calling get authentication state twice, right? It does seem right. So if this is not authenticated, only the first time do we care. Saying that seems necessary. We don't need to wait there, right? But that we've seen causes a problem in the behavior because it kind of creates a weird state of it's going to reload it. So it's essentially going to call this again. And now the token's still set. But we haven't changed the state, so we're still going to return null here. It doesn't seem like it can cause a problem, but in the same, it doesn't look like it does anything different. So it seems like it kind of creates a weird behavior. So again, we get to here. That's always going to happen. We log in, right? Now what's that error? Always this the WebAssembly always throws this error. Unless it's actually trying to make an HTTP request. But it doesn't look like it. So failed to fetch what? Where did it fail to fetch, right? There's no stack trace here that's useful for me. API preferences, like, why did you even get there? Like, you shouldn't have even got to this point, right? Because that should be logged out. And why does that do that? Because it's only if you're not authenticated, right? Again, debugging is going to be a mess. I'm going to have to start Visual Studio if I want to debug here. We saw that yesterday. But it shouldn't change anything. Right. And again, but it's not, well, it kind of, I'm learning that WebAssembly will throw this for everything, right? It's not an actual calls issue. What it is the token is not valid. It's trying to, I bet it's trying to make this call, and it has no valid token. Yeah, good morning. So we're getting unauthorized because the token's actually invalid. Oh, it's passing the token. Why are you passing the token? Because this should have happened. I just feel like I'm doing everything slightly off where I need to be. So what I've introduced today, I don't know how long you've been here online. I've introduced the concept of like a expiration on the client. So the authentication state provider actually now has two pieces. First, is there a token? If there is a token, proceed. If there's not, we're not logged in. Secondly, getting expires and only set the user if expires is past the current ticks. Otherwise, a non-user. So what do I do here? Expires for the tokens they use an actual expiry. How long from issue they will expire? Ah, gotcha. Okay. Whereas I'm returning the total ticks. That does seem to be working the way it is working though right now. I just passing in a claims identity marks the user as authenticated even if it has no claims. No, this it's this that actually marks it as authenticated. We validated this before. If you pass an authentication type, it's validated. Otherwise, it's not. Yeah, we Junicus and I validated that already. This will return an invalid user. So it's actually that. It's the introduction of the Yep. Well, and I mean, right now I'm these are lessons I don't want to be learning, but I think it's kind of worthwhile for the sake of this. Um, um, hmm. True, but having actual claims identity does identify the user as authenticated to the app, regardless of whether the user is valid or not. No. Hold on. Let me start Visual Studio. There's no point using Rider for this. the debugging just doesn't work as well. So let's put a breakpoint there. Put a breakpoint there. And let's put. I know, Visual Studio. Why don't you collapse everything when you finally load a plugin? That's really helpful. Thank you. So what I'm trying to do here is basically kind of tighten up who owns the token, right? So the auth service will be responsible for getting the token for any other services, but it will pull it from the state provider, right? So the state provider, I've kind of moved everything into that so that this understands the local storage concerns, and everything else doesn't need to keep interfering with that local storage for the token and for the expiration, right? So I'm trying to tie that up. The way I'm using that is in the method calls, I'm trying to get the auth token. If I can't get it, then I bail out. Otherwise, I've got my token, right? So again, I'm trying to tidy that up and make sure these, it's obvious what I'm doing. The problem is that when I call these now, if the token has expired, and I've set it to a minute, so it expires pretty quickly, right? If the token has expired, then these calls just return false, so the screen stays as it is. So I'm trying to make it so that I can redirect back to the login page when I'm not authenticated. So let's start this up. So we've got a breakpoint on our try get auth token. So the first call that happens will trigger that. So we get in. We get to here. We get to here many times. Interesting that only just got there. So we have a token, and we've got multiple calls. Expires is 0. So that will return is authenticated false on the identity, because the claims identity is empty. That is authenticated false. So that's interesting. That called that twice. That called that 3 times, 4 times, just to get to the login page. Now I know one of them is the get consumption percentage. That definitely calls those pieces to validate the token, and that's why moving it to the client so it avoids the API calls, right? So I'm just logging in on the other screen. So we get here now. Now expiration is there. We're authenticated, right? Because we've got a claim and we've got this authentication type. So this is an authenticated state. So now we're going to come in here. We're going to go there. Whoever expires, we are authenticated still. This is so slow. So we have our state and is authenticated is true, right? So now we have our token. Not loading any data. But that could be now because this has expired. So state is authenticated is false. Okay, so I've spent long enough in there that I'm actually false. Yeah. 24. You are creating a new claims identity instead of making it know which is I've encountered will show up as authenticated. Also, so you're talking about the provider here. It does say is authenticated false. It is 100% saying is authenticated is false there. Let me just show you. So go in here. How are you getting? Here you go. Good time of day, Ryan Hawkins. How are you doing? So is authenticated is 100% false here. The identity is authenticated is false. So it is this empty claims identity injected into the claims principal, put into this state is not authenticated. So it is authenticated is false. Yeah. And like, I mean, this is another one of those things, right? Like what you and Miss Ranhorn are like, yeah, that is still going to be authenticated, but it's not. It's not authenticated, but is it actually causing another issue, right? These things have clearly changed and moved around even in recent times. So, what do I do to validate that I'm not breaking this? What do I do to validate that I'm not introducing some weird behaviors? What do I search for? Even, right? There's all these sorts of challenges. Just something I'm not able to articulate. Yeah, no worries. So the thing I think is, so obviously the UI is still valid, right? So even though I'm going back and forth, interesting that the log screen doesn't need to do anything until it actually logs something, so that's why. But each one of these is going to call that piece and get the validation and say, nope, it's not valid. So it's returning defaults because there's no token. So what I'm thinking is I need to say, hey, by the way, the token has expired. Wake up, right? And the way you normally do that is you do this notify authentication state changed, right? But the problem is, if I call that, after I've called that, it seems to cause another issue. Why not slap on the authorized flag to the pages? Let's go ahead and slap on some authorized tags. Is it that style? But again, shouldn't the layout do that? Being that I'm authorizing the route view, isn't that what that's intended to do? Or am I mistaking? Is my understanding of this really bad? Attribute authorize. Okay, so okay. Of course, yeah. Yeah, of course. Oh, what's that going to be? Thank you. So we'll do that on. No, I do have it on log. That's interesting that it's on log. And it's on preferences. So again, it's like I need to say, hey, by the way, I've checked this. Like, is this not meant to be called? So then, yes, on those pages with users in auth, it would redirect. Says that program CSS is not configured for auth, for redirects. I'm going to say it's not. And if it doesn't fall in the not authorized path, then that means the auth state believes it is authenticated, most likely because there is a non-null eligible. I mean, I'm open to that. Let's do that. Let's change it. So, this, what we're saying is, if this isn't valid, instead of doing this, I want to return null. I want to return a null user. So, if I do new claims principal, so we're saying that, right? Let me restart everything just to be just to be sure. Oh, just always be restarting Blazor wasn't. My last stream was all that. Yeah, sorry I didn't get to attend that last night. My apologies. Okay, here we go. We should get a login page. Nice. It is local storage. But isn't that... I guess I'm making assumptions about the control. So my thought was, even if it's invalid, this should return now. Right now, this will return null. Right. So this is, let's validate that that's the cause of that piece. Oh my goodness! Stop. Right. So unwind that a bit. Let's start that up. So the token is invalid. We get here if we have an empty claims identity there. Let's change that to be null. And we get stuck, and we got the error. So the only way that starts up is with that. So it is definitely validating this piece, right? I will validate. I will show you. This is another side effect to this. The tooling. I'll do it this way first, then we'll try the other way. The tooling proving to me yet time and time again that it is giving me no valuable information means I'm not looking at the tooling. That is a side effect. Value cannot be no parameter identity. Yeah. It does not like receiving a null for identity there. Let's stop that running. Come on. Let's put that on there. Let's do identity there. We'll do the same thing. My assumption is it'll say that claims can't be null. Yeah, user cannot be null. So user has to be set. So you have to set a empty identity or a valid one for the claims principal. It will not accept null in either of those positions. Here, user can't be null here on an authentication state. So I tried that both ways. Null here for, just always, like if it's not valid, and null here. It complains about identity, then claims about user. So and again, I don't doubt it. I'm thinking that again, some of this stuff's changed, and some of this stuff is changing, and they just move it around a little bit here and there, and that's kind of what upsets me about this entire framework is that general attitude towards, oh, well, let's do it this way now. It feels like that, even if it's not like that. It feels like it's like, oh well, this isn't the way we want it to be. Let's change it in between versions, and now it's all different again. And well, if the claims principle is something, the app would be treated as authenticated when it comes to the auth attributes. I think it's validating. So if it can't have, well, it knows that it's not logged in, right? Because it knows that it's not authenticated because it's showing the login screen. Right? It knows that this is not authenticated. On home, allow anonymous. I do have this call is authenticated where I redirect to log if it's authenticated. So this knows, I mean, there I'm returning the authenticated state of the user, right? But it's clearly validating this piece independently because it's showing this now. Yeah. Yeah. Should. But again, so if it's calling this when I navigate, absolutely, it should be doing the not authenticated thing, right? Now, each of these pages does have authorize. Let's actually put that into imports, if I haven't got it there already. Because that seems like I should not keep repeating that one. So in AppRaiser, see the consumption state provider that wraps around everything to show the little water, that is making an early call into this, right? So it's actually going to get the auth token and making that call. That's why there was multiple requests to that that piece, because this get consumption percentage is firing all the time. I don't know if I can avoid that though, right? This is what Junica's added, and it was like, well, we could do things differently. So there's always, this is incorrect anyway, but it's still I don't think that would be causing a problem with the authorize. So not authorized should go to login. So do have the oh no, this redirects to log if it's authenticated. Login is a component there. One technique of the long thing is to the point. So the typical approach is have a redirect to login, raise a file that uninitialized as navigation manager navigate to. Gotcha. But that would clean up the logging component specifically, right? That wouldn't necessarily change this. Right. So that so you create an extra file that does a navigation manager navigate. Okay. And right now, login's a component that I've added into the page, so. Yeah, I don't think it changed this problem. So this does not get hit when I navigate. So if I log in, get 1. Now when I navigate to another page, the call stack here, it is the friends service that's making that call, right? It's this service that's making that call. And no other service does it. That's interesting. Why is that failing now? Token's probably already invalid because it's set to a minute expiration. So I have noticed that every time, if you have a failure on an HTTP request, it's basically a calls issue. Why are you there? So test friends. Yeah, okay. Authenticated. I'll see it eventually. This is making the HTTP call every time, so. A different host. No. The calls is set up. That is not a calls issue. 100% it's not a calls issue because we've already gone through that so many times because it's the reason this is allowing everything right now is because the idea being that anyone could build a client for this, so I don't want to restrict it to anything. So So calls is very permissive right this second. It's an issue if the token isn't valid, it will throw a call. It will show as a calls issue. And again, I'm seeing that time and time again. So maybe when that is an issue, I don't immediately assume that, so I discard it. I'm finding that pattern a lot here. Okay, so now it's invalid, right? The token is invalid because I'm getting the defaults back. So the token is coming back. The try get token is saying, nope, don't have a token, right? So it's because of the expiration. So what should happen here is these should know that it's not authenticated and redirect, is what we're saying. But it's not validating those. I would help without just being annoying. It's not annoying. It's the conversation is helping me think through it. If nothing else, it's allowing me to understand a few moving pieces, right? You do not have to feel any obligation to try and take on this figuring out. I mean, I will push the code today so that everyone has access to what I've just done in the current state, but it's there's no requirement to do that. Yeah, there is. I'm not looking forward to my work day today. So few issues. Obviously, the authorize attribute isn't validating the authorize, or this doesn't. I mean, I'm not going to dig down into the authorize attribute because it's going to do a lot more than just be an attribute, right? I'm just waiting for my models to train, so I got time. This is just incredibly frustrating. Again, if I was doing this in Angular, this wouldn't be any less frustrating because again, in Angular, I haven't even dealt with some of this stuff, right? I haven't dealt with the idea of, okay, well, what happens if I'm not logged in? Auth0's library is checking to see the expiration and automatically forcing me out the application, right? I have a meeting in an hour that I have been invited to. The other team again. The one where it's just a waste of time. You give us some debugging testing to authorize view tag and see what the internal state is. Yeah. Oh, time. So what I'm going to do for right now is I'm going to commit this code so that it's all available. Whether you're interested or not, there's no requirement to take a look at this. This is quite the mess. And it could be that it's just, I just need to undo it, right? I need to change this out. So what we did is we changed the token service to return a tuple for right this second. Again, not trying to overthink the design a little bit. I'm just trying to get the data back. This has an expiration date, which does in all, for all intents and purposes, seem to be doing what it should be doing. Right now, this is set to a minute expiration. That would be something to be aware of. We changed our auth provider to validate the expiration as well as the actual token. The token is just a token, right? The auth provider, the expiration matters. And again, we kind of, after discussing with Junikus yesterday, I realized that it isn't wrong for us to return the token and the expiration. That's exactly what Auth0 does for me now in the regular app.
I'm interested because I remember my struggles with custom auth and want to help alleviate some of those pains. Also to refresh myself on it. And there goes your disable pre-rolls ad. Ah, I always miss the ads. So let's get this committed. I'm going to make one commit. One Lion, thank you very much for the sub. You did not need to sub. I was waiting. I appreciate that. Okay. Another one. So we have. I'm going to commit this as one set. So changes to path down and respect expiration of token. So again, remember if you do check out this code, there is a minute expiration on that token. So it's deliberately going to be quick before it breaks. I could just get Turbo, but I like specifically supporting the streams I get the most value from. Well, I very much appreciate it. Thank you very much. Timeout is set to 1 minute. Testing purposes. Not something I normally put in a git commit, but I think it's just worthwhile highlighting that just in case you do check out the code or someone else checks out the code in the meantime. Past ticks down to point duration. Blazor to be a.tbd. Move call for validate. So there is still a validate endpoint we could use, but we don't need it for right now. Refactor state provider to validate expiration. Move all local storage for token. Okay. So let's push that. So feature 37 branch should be up there. Yeah. So if you want to check it out, you're more than welcome. It is there for all to see. Again, I'll have a think about this as well. If you have any thoughts, opinions, questions on it, you're more than welcome to join the Discord or join in the Discord. And there is a specific topic set up for drinking water. So there is stuff there if anyone needs. And appropriately, we do have C# Fritz to raid today. So I'm going to finish up. I'm going to raid over there. I'm going to go get myself some breakfast before I start work. And yeah, I'll be back tomorrow with Agile Project Platform, Agile Project Management Platform. I probably should just start calling it Liquid Sky. It'd be easier. And my little code name for it. I did start writing up a post the other day, trying to resume some form of blogging about it, or at least trying to track some of those things, those discussions, and trying to figure out, when a stream is productive, and there's pieces of discussion in there, how to take them and build something from it so that I don't just move on and do something new. And I was starting to think about the feature set after last stream on the project management tool. And actually, I've got it set up on Word. No, it's not. Yeah, WordPress right this second. I'm deciding whether I want to do it. So I kind of started going through what I've been doing with the UI. And then I realized, oh, well, hold on. This one feature that I want, to really do it properly, I need a whole bunch of other features. So it might be well worth doing the one feature, but I can't really do it effectively without really exploding my system. And it's kind of highlighting for me the need to, I've harped on it for a long time with my actual work, is you can't just say, hey, I need this now, right? And go off and do that thing. As a developer, you can't just take what someone asks you to do and not consider the knock-on effects, right? So my use case here was I wanted to add, I wanted to introduce the idea of a user being told about what notifications they care about, right? So I was thinking through how I might do that, because I kind of started building up this idea of, well, if I have a work item, I can say, hey, well, I care about being notified when the state changes by a summary email every day, or I care about a pop-up notification when the state changes or whatever. You could there's all different ways you could consume the content, because one of the biggest things I'm trying to think about is I want to do notifications, but how do I stop the flow, right? How do you not get 1 billion notifications a day, right? So allowing the users to really hone when they get notified and how they get notified and what priorities put on notifications, etc. So I started thinking through that, but then I started realizing, well, if I need to do that, well, I need permissions. And this is why it's kind of gone to this topic. I need permissions. I need discoverability. I need the idea of projects. What does that look like right now? So it exploded into this thought experiment. So now I'm going to have to go through some of those things. So we're going to be starting the stream tomorrow in a planning mode as such, because I do need to talk about discovering these things and kind of brainstorming a little bit. So tomorrow's stream will start with a lot more discussion and analysis over actual development, because if I just jump right into development, I'm going to make a mess, right? So I've got to do some of that stuff. So that is what's coming tomorrow. I'm going to continue to build this out, I think, and try and build out this discussion. Fun. Wish I was not driving into work during the start. Well, there's always the YouTube videos, right? If I bring up anything specifically interesting, I will make a note. But that will be the focus for a little while now on the project management, and it's necessary stuff, right? Again, my goal of this project is to show this is software development. If I'm just showing the development pieces, I'm being a little bit disingenuous to the idea of sharing that process. So yeah. Anyway, I've waffled enough. Let's raid C# Fritz. There's still 8 of you left. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for coming, hanging out. One Line, thank you very much for that sub. I do appreciate it very much. So, and I will continue to do what I'm doing. So, thank you all. Take care. Have a great rest of your day if I don't see you around. And yeah, see you soon. Bye all.